So are you guys able to see the sign language interpreter in your guys' view? Okay, is there a better place? Sorry, I'm gonna.
Next to the podium.
All right, is that okay with you guys? All right, if you can come just kind of like right here would probably be okay.
Maybe between the two of them, and then you guys will slide by anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're tall.
Sorry, I'm gonna.
That's all right. No, right here is perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'll stick to Steve.
I'm gonna learn. Bring a soapbox.
I don't want to bump anything.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Good morning, I'm Deputy Childress with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I'm the PIO. This morning, Sheriff Spurlock and DA Brockler are gonna speak with you about an arrest that was made in a cold case homicide of Helene Pruszynski. This is in 1980. I'm gonna go ahead and spell their names for you. Sheriff Spurlock is Tony, Tony. Spurlock, Spurlock. And DA Brockler is George, George. Brockler, Brauchler. Once they're done, they're going to take a couple questions. I'll go ahead and stop the questions, and then we're going to, we have records release forms in the back. If you have any requests or additional questions, you can email me at pio@dcsheriff.net or submit that records request form, and we'll fulfill that request as soon as we possibly can.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you all for being here. This is when I was thinking about it this morning, and I just got off the phone with Helene's sister, it was kind of one of those bittersweet moments, because this has been a long time, almost 40 years. January 16 will be the 40th anniversary of Helene Pruszynski's murder. And so first I want to start by thanking the people that are up here, some people that are up here that helped make this possible. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office Investigations Unit and our cold case review team have been working on this for well over a year, and I'm going to go into a little bit more about that in a second, but Detective Shannon Jensen is the lead detective on the case. Valerie Garcia is the, we call her the supervisor of the cold case review team. This is a volunteer group that works with the cold case team to help them with the cases. And then Audrey Sipkins from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, who's been a key player with us, helping us with this when we were working with the DNA. I also want to thank the 22 detectives. I'm not going to give you all their names. Some of them are in this room, but we deployed 22 detectives around the state and into Florida and other locations to help us get information that brought us to the arrest. So to those detectives who worked actually since Thanksgiving through Thanksgiving today, thank you for giving up your life and your family's time to do this. The Union County Sheriff, Sheriff Whitehead, has been very helpful to us, and that's where the arrest was made. Florida Department of Law Enforcement assisted us a great deal. Obviously, the District Attorney's Office, and they're going to talk about it. Colorado Bureau of Investigations, SAC Dean Phillips, and the BAU unit at Quantico helped us a great deal from the FBI. And then behind us is the United Data Connect, which is Mitch Morrissey and Joan Bussey, who helped us out a great deal as well. And then, of course, Colorado State Patrol, Chief Matt Packard helped us a lot. And then Crime Stoppers, Michael Mills, who's also behind me here to my left, helped us out as well. I think it's important that we talk about the victim, Helene Pruszynski. And I talked again to her sister just a few moments ago to let her know that we'll be doing this press conference. And the key thing about her is that here's a 21-year-old girl who left college in a small little town in Massachusetts to come to Colorado to internship at KHOW Radio, and was only here 2 weeks, and was abducted at some time coming home from work, raped and murdered in Douglas County, and left. This is a young girl who was just starting her life, came to Colorado to have an opportunity to make a difference. She wanted to be in journalism. She wanted to be a part of a bigger story. She was involved in her choir at home, and from all accounts, and everyone that had anything to say about her, was just a wonderful, decent, nice young lady. And it's important that we talk about her as much as we can. Obviously, we understand that the suspect that we have in custody is going to get some attention, but the key is that we remember and we remain that we have Helene in our thoughts and prayers and her family. I think you see there's a photograph up there possibly right now that has her brother Chester, who is deceased, her grandmother Julia, who's also deceased, and then her sister Janet, who is the only one in the immediate family that's still alive, and the other lady is her grandmother Julia. That's her life, and because it had taken so long, so many people had gone and don't get to have the opportunity to hear this, that we've made an arrest. I will tell you that we started this investigation obviously in January 16, 1980. Colorado Bureau of Investigations, Douglas County Sheriff's Office started the investigation, and within a year it went cold. And there wasn't really a lot of work that went on it periodically, but not until about 1998 when we reopened the case, started to work on it, and developed a few more leads, but then again it went cold. In 2013, I started a cold case review team and a cold case unit, along with George Brockler and his agency did the same thing. He's going to talk a little bit about that. And we really started focusing on cold cases and started focusing on things that we could use to help us solve these. And in many of the cases, it's DNA, it's forensic, it's technology, the newest trending technology. And that's how we got ourselves here today. I'm not going to go into great detail about that, but I can tell you that the people that are behind me and beside me played a major role. Chief Steve Johnson, who is the commander of the overall command, a lot of work, and we had some really good luck, if you will. And then we had some great evidence and original evidence that was taken in by the CBI and by our office. And here we are today, where we have an individual who is in custody, and we're going to tell you just a little bit more about him. He is in our jail right now. He was extradited this weekend to Douglas County, and we are in the process of getting him prepared for court, which will happen later on this afternoon, I'm told about 1:30. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to George Brockler to talk a little bit about the prosecution, and then we'll answer any questions.
1 month shy of 40 years ago, a 21-year-old girl was kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered. And to put in perspective how long ago that was, before we can get to this first formal step of achieving justice on her behalf, is to know that back then the President of the United States was Jimmy Carter. Empire Strikes Back hadn't even come out in the movie theaters yet. Both prosecutors assigned to our cold case unit weren't even alive back when this crime was committed. Heck, even Mitch Morrissey and Sheriff Spurlock were a mere 30 years old. I'm not good at math, but it felt like that was true. But today, if you see us smiling up here, don't take that satisfaction as the job is finished or a job well done. We haven't won the Super Bowl, but we're now on the field inside the stadium, and we're able to work towards that goal. One of the things that you have to understand as we continue to have conversations about this case and the great work that was done is that this guy, no matter what is revealed in the affidavit that I think is unsuppressed now, no matter what is revealed in open court later today, this guy is presumed innocent, and he has to remain presumed innocent for this system to work. Now, one of the things that I think the public should take away from this is twofold. we don't rest on murder cases. It may seem like justice has been too long delayed, but it isn't going to be denied in this case. The other thing that I think that the public ought to take away from this is that this is the true team effort. There is no single person, there is no single piece of technology, no single fact that resulted in this day and everything that transpires afterwards. This was a concerted effort by people who were interested in getting to justice on a case that had sat on a shelf because we didn't have anything to do with it for the longest time. I can't thank enough the efforts of Mitch Morrissey and his company, United Data Connect. Without them, I don't think we're here. Shannon Jensen, who stands to my left. There's no way we get here just on technology. If it hadn't been dogged, old school police work done by Detective Jensen, we wouldn't be here today. The cold case unit that Sheriff Spurlock stood up the same year that we stood ours up, without those efforts, we wouldn't be standing here today. This is a true team effort. As we move forward, though, I think some of the procedural questions that folks will have or should have are things that we can address right now. So this is a person we've already referred charges on. We've already filed charges. And those charges include various theories of first-degree murder. There's after deliberation with intent. There's felony murder predicated on an underlying crime of robbery. There's felony murder predicated on an underlying crime of kidnapping, and felony murder predicated on an underlying crime of sexual assault, and then a standalone charge of kidnapping. Now, there's some things you need to know about that. Questions might be asked, well, why didn't you charge the underlying robbery or the underlying sexual assault? It's because the statute of limitations has run on those charges. Another question that would be asked is, well, what's the penalty for murder? Well, today, that penalty would be life without parole. But back in squishy, soft, we love bad guy 1980s, that penalty is parole eligibility after a mere 20 years if convicted of first-degree murder. So we're standing here today with these 5 charges that this guy's presumed innocent of that we're moving forward on in this case. This afternoon at 1:30, he will be formally advised in front of, I believe, Judge Slade in Division 1. It's Division 1, isn't it? Division 1. At that time, he'll have already had the appointment of counsel. I presume it'll be the public defender's office or some sort of alternate defense counsel. And then we'll get a date after this to make some decisions about the next phase, which should include preliminary hearing, after that an arraignment, and then subsequent to that, either some sort of entry of a plea or a setting of motions hearing and a trial. It is my intention that this case, having sat for 40 years, until this day, we are going to move forward with deliberation and with appropriate due diligence and haste to get to justice in this case for our young 21-year-old victim. I want to thank the guys on my team, too, that helped put this together, the victim advocates that have worked so closely with the victim advocates out of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I can tell you, having spoken with the victim's mother in this case, the emotions are as raw in some ways as they were 40 years ago. I think this is the kind of phone call that at some point you don't expect to get. And you know that's always hanging out there, but to hear that sound in Mom's voice was something special. And my hope is we can continue to move forward to get whatever ultimate closure a system like this can provide after a sweet, innocent 21-year-old girl has been ripped from it. Regardless of that being 40 years ago. I'm happy to answer any other questions that, you know what? I forgot to give another important shout out. Crime Stoppers. That's the real deal right there. This doesn't get done without Crime Stoppers and Mr. Mills. Their investment of effort and resources into this is the reason that we're standing here. I'm a huge, huge fan of Crime Stoppers. If you guys have any other questions though, Sheriff, was there something else? Happy to answer questions or, yes, sir. I'm not even the one directing this. There's someone who's supposed to be in charge that actually knows stuff.
You're in charge. And we're gonna
Are you sure? Are you okay with that?
No, you're fine.
Yes, sir.
At the time of Ms. Pruszynski's disappearance in Englewood, there were a number of sexual assault cases that were unsolved. Is your suspect, is he suspected in those cases as well?
We've investigated a number of issues regarding that. That's still an ongoing investigation. Also keeping in mind that almost all of those would have statute of limitations that would apply to it as well. But we are working closely with the Inglewood Police Department just to make sure that we have all of our issues covered.
Sheriff, can you talk about the aha moment?
When we received a call through Mitch's office, Shannon got the call, and we were like, this is the most likely individual. When we were able to get the call from CBI and said, this is your guy, that was it was one of those kinds of feelings, because you've been working so long and so hard to get something, and now all of a sudden here is the suspect. It was excitement, some relief, but also, it was like, okay, now we know we have to, there's a next step. And part of that is, going through all the process that we have right now. But we were very excited and very pleased to partner with these folks and to get that particular information.
What was the big break in the case that led you to him?
Well, we had been working with Mitch Morrissey's company to help us connect DNA, and working hand in hand with Colorado Bureau of Investigations. And there was a significant amount of evidence that, as I said, was maintained and properly cared for over the last 40 years at the crime scene. And that evidence was then later turned to pointing the finger at our suspect.
Can I say one other thing about that too? There's DNA that's part of this case, a big part of this case, but don't misunderstand that it's like, hey, we just entered DNA into some voodoo database and out popped this guy. It wasn't like that. It was a combination of DNA existing, technology that was available, but then the dogged police work that was done by Detective Jensen, as well as Mitch's company, that helped put the pieces together for us to find that missing piece of evidence to tie it all together, and that's how it happened. Let me correct one other thing, a misstatement. You might have seen John Kellner, who's the head of our cold case unit, lean in to tell me. I said it was mom that I spoke to. It was sister. Forgive me for that. I think you guys probably picked up on that before I did. One other thing about the sexual assaults that may have taken place out there, obviously we don't know if they're related to this guy, but despite the statute of limitations running, look, to the extent that we're able to get to some sort of closure for people, if they were victims of those crimes, and I hope Inglewood, I presume they are taking a look at this, I'd like to know one way or the other whether or not it's prosecutable or not. I think the other piece to keep in mind as this guy's identity becomes put out there through you folks is that if there's anybody here in the state of Colorado or anywhere that knew this guy at about that time, had contact with him, or anything about him at about the time of this crime, we'd sure love to know. And I want to give out the sheriff's personal cell for that.
Thanks, George.
No, I'm kidding. It's not the personal cell, but there's probably somebody to contact, and it's not me.
Yes, you can contact the Douglas County Sheriff's Office on our non-emergency line, 303-660-7505.
George, can you talk about the difficulty perhaps in prosecuting these types of cases and what you anticipate the public defender to maybe say?
Hard to know what the defense will do in this case, hard to speculate. Knowing the evidence that's available in this case, I felt comfortable, extremely comfortable, moving forward with these charges in this manner. But again, we have a system that's set up to provide the maximum amount of due process for someone accused of crimes both small and large, recent and old. And this process will ferret that out. But I'm very confident with the steps that we've taken in the direction that we're heading. And more will be revealed, obviously, through either the affidavit, if you already have it, if it's been unsuppressed, and then in open court as we proceed. Yes, sir.
With respect to what you said regarding the other police work, would you say that this case, or the technology has finally caught up with this case? You had the evidence back when it happened almost 40 years ago, but you didn't have the technology. Would you say that over time the technology has finally caught up with, which allowed you guys to have this break-in?
I would say the technology was an undeniable part of this case. But I don't want the public to think that, hey, we just came up with this new scientific method, and absent the hard work of human beings actually doing old school police work and digging around, that this would have just solved itself. That's not true. You know, cases like this give me hope for the future. As we continue to make these technological advances, there are crimes yet unsolved today that I have great optimism because of cases like this that we're going to end up solving. And I think the public ought to feel good about that, and I think murderers ought to be scared to death of it.
Can you tell us anything about the moment Clanton was arrested? Did the sheriff or investigators there tell you anything about how that went down and how he was caught?
So we were working very closely with the Union County Sheriff. We had suspect under surveillance for a number, almost 2 weeks, where the time was made for him to be arrested. He was taken into custody, taken to the sheriff's office. At that point, some processing was done. It was out without incident. We turned over the property and his scene and his vehicles over to the Union County Sheriff, and they helped us with that. And it was pretty much without incident.
A traffic stop, is that what you're saying?
No. He's a truck driver. He parked his truck where he normally always does, got out of his truck, and was walking away from it when he was taken into custody.
We're going to take one more question if there are any, and then we'll wrap it up. For the
Before you do that, can I throw out one other thing I forgot to about the charges? Someone's going to ask, was there a death penalty in Colorado in 1980, and is this case particularly eligible for it? There was a death penalty. It looks different than the death penalty that we have now. That law was in existence back then, and of course, we're going to take
Sheriff, your thoughts?
Composite, all of us sat around the table and we're like,